We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is PCar Talk.
I'm Mike from PCar Talk.
I'm Aaron.
And we're on location at the Mezzo Market. Thanks for joining us. We have special guests, Greg and Michael McCarthy out here.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey,
Thank you for having us out.
Of course. And we'll get into the bio and all that kind of stuff on the back half of the site, and we'll go into why they're here and why Michael's such a special guy and why his dad's a special guy. But we'll get into that. So we got a little bit of chat on the front half, a little business to handle. We want to thank JRZ for being a sponsor with us. They do off-road, on-road, all that kind of stuff.
On the track.
Yeah. So enthusiast spec. If you're baller spec, you want to do that for suspension, right? Like you think you got something baller, you want to like dial it up a little bit. JRZ's your one you want to go to, right? And Mike's probably experienced like some of the other guys out on track. They're probably running JRZ enthusiast spec type stuff out there, right?
I've seen a few cars ride them.
Yeah.
Look great on track though.
Yeah. So thank you for JRZ for sponsoring us. So a couple topics, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll get into the bio of Michael and Greg on the backside. But we'll have them for conversation. So let's get started. So Porsche's making a variant. We know, like they're making a 4.0 Spyder. We already know that. That's new, not news to everybody. But some news that is out now, they're going to make a 2-liter Spyder, which is turbocharged. Originally thought to be for the Chinese market because they have a displacement tax when coming in. So we thought it was going to only be for that. However, it was tested at the ring, so a little bit more into that. They think that's going to be a worldwide sell on that car. So numbers on that car, 295 horsepower, 280 foot-pounds of torque. It's going to look a little bit softer than the actual Spyder that's out there right now, as far as fins, grills, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to give an option of, okay, you could step up by the 4-liter, maybe buy the 2-liter, because it's supposed to be cheaper is the whole point on this. What's your thoughts on this, Aaron? And then we'll go around the table, everybody's thoughts. Is this a good move, or does this dilute the Spyder branch? They only make the 4-liter basically available, and that's it. Is it a good move to make a cheaper, softer version?
I think it's weird at first because they moved away from that 4-cylinder, the 2-liter in general. They moved on to the 6 for a reason, because it needed it.
Yeah.
I could see it being helpful if they were gonna make it unlimited, not just go make it as they want. I don't know. I just see it as another Boxster.
Yeah, with some
that's what I see it as.
With some dress up on it.
Yeah.
Window dressing essentially.
Yeah, that's it.
Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
It's kind of a tough call because, as an F1 fan, especially an F1 fan from the 80s and 90s when everything was, 1.8 liter, massive boost. You kind of look at it that way and go, okay, what could you get out of that engine? But, from a purist perspective, I think it makes it a little difficult, right?
Yeah.
And maybe to Aaron's comments, it's, at the end of the day, what really is it and what are you trying to accomplish? So, I don't know that I have really a feeling on it. I always prefer normally aspirated engines, obviously, but then again, as an owner of a 2RS,
you could see the point, right?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
How about you, Mike? What do you think about that?
Well, it comes down to being a commercial and an enthusiast decision. So for the commercial market, where you're going to have a few people who buy the car for the brand name and they're just trying to drive from point A to point B, a turbo 4-cylinder is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Plus, it's cheaper a little bit and it's easy to get the brand name out there.
Yeah.
For an enthusiast, of course, everybody's going to want the NA 4-liter.
Yeah.
That's the way to go on that.
Yeah, I think that's some good points because, honestly, so if you dial back really into Porsche history, right? It was very small displacement, lightweight cars, right? So maybe I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe they're trying to reach back into that. Clearly, as you said, Greg, we appreciate the NA car. It makes that scream. I think everybody kind of wants that long term. I think it's one of those things where man, it has a sexy sound, right?
Absolutely.
It has all of those.
And it just revs to the moon.
Yeah.
9+ thousand.
And you have a topless car, it does that. Yeah. You have a 992, Carrera S, and we'll get into the details of that. But and I'm sure the sound of that car is intoxicating with the top down, whereas opposed to where these coupes are oh, I want a coupe. But I think a lot of guys that don't explore maybe a roofless car, there's a little bit of that benefit when you have maybe a convertible / Spyder / Targa, where you're getting a little bit more induction noise, you're getting a little bit more exhaust noise. And that's the nice part about the Spyder. What I worry about, like where I'm going with this, is maybe that 2-liter, because we've heard a lot of like horror stories prior, you know, when the Cayman and the Boxster, even before they went to Aspire, naturally aspirated and turbo and all that stuff, people were talking about how upset they were with that sound, right? They're like, this sounds like a Subaru now. Like, it's not a Porsche, it's a Boxster 4 with a turbo. Like, there's a lot of him-hawing around about it. But I think on the flip side, if we look at this from an enthusiast spec, and it helps more people get into Porsche, right?
It does, though, Mike, but I think the only problem with that is, even does it dilute the brand?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's, again, as an owner of a few of these cars, you sit back and go, okay, great, you want people to enjoy the car, but, you know, again, as an owner, does it dilute the brand overall? Does it take away? Yeah. I think there's an argument there, too.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I feel that way, like, because I'm more on the side of the more enthusiast side, and to be honest with you, like, I could care less if they sold cars. Obviously, we don't work for Porsche, and we don't have any stake in the game, but at the same time, being Porsche owners and purchasing Porsches, I do think it does dilute that, because I'm in the situation where I look at it and I'm like, wait a minute, there's 2 variants of this car now?
Right.
Like, so now you can, that's almost like, I know it's kind of a stretch, but it's almost kind of like, so we're making a smaller displacement GT3. It's like turbocharged, and like, so it's cheaper, but it still carries the GT3 brand. Like, right. I almost feel like we're being a little BMW-ish here, right? Like throwing an M badge on something. It's like, oh, you're getting an M package out.
Exactly. Or
like,
AMG, right?
Yeah.
Same
so
thing.
It's like, oh, you're getting a Spyder. We're putting a Spyder badge on it, but really it's a Boxster.
Mm-hmm. You know,
and we're giving you a little bit of love and calling it a Spyder, and now you think you're doing something special, and now we're going to upcharge you because of a Spyder badge. Right. I feel a little that with that car.
Yeah. It could almost be the edge of them starting a whole new line. Like, just the Spyder is the thing.
Yeah.
The Spyder, they have a GT version. They have a normal.
I really hope it doesn't,
version,
because, like,
back
to what Greg's saying, like, if they go down that path, I think they're going to lose a lot of loyalty from a lot of guys and enthusiasts like us, and men and women, where they're like, look, there shouldn't be multiple variants of this. Like, there's a GT3, and then, like, that's it. Yeah. There's a GT3 RS, there's a GT2 RS, and there's a GT2. There's not like a Spyder, and like, oh, well, there's
Spyder
there's like
S,
a tamed,
GTS.
there's a tamed version of this.
Right.
Like, no, there's. Right. You get the one, it's got the badass motor, and that's it.
That's right.
It's not a short change, it's not a GT motor, technically. So
I think they need to be careful, because, you know, I think they've learned a lot from Ferrari. So think back, you know, before, I mean, Ferrari was they're so good at the whole supply and demand piece, and then more importantly, they're really good at, you buy the base and then you've got $50,000 or $100,000 in options, and obviously Porsche's done a great job with that. I mean, now all of a sudden, you know, are you going to lose that supply and demand edge that you now currently have?
Yeah.
Like for me, as we talked earlier, you know, I've got a GT3 allocation.
Yeah,
that is like gold in your hand.
100%.
And you know, do you lose that? And you can't, because that's what keeps the prices high and the resale and all those other things. And then the mystique of the brand. I mean, there's so many different ways we can talk about this.
Let's be honest, and like, regardless if you're listening because you think that may be a douchebag thing, but like, in all honesty, if you're fortunate enough to get an allocation for a car like that, like, if it dilutes the specialness from it, like, why the hell do you want it, right? Like, you want to feel special. Let's be honest about it, because it is a special car. But if they made 15,000 GT3s, they're not special anymore.
But you mentioned the word enthusiast, right? Yeah. So I think you have to put yourself maybe, and again, I hate to make personal references, but I mean, there is something to be said that you walk out in the garage and, as a mature adult, look and go, that's my car, as opposed to boulevard pimping in downtown St. Pete,
100%.
Right? And I think that's where most people are, at least enthusiasts of Porsche. I mean, it's not about it's not being that guy. It's about, I have something special that I can't replace and you can't have it.
Exactly. And it's race derived. I think really too, like the backstory, like the trump card on that, like all those cars are race derived, right? Like, so there's actual racing technology going in, like 992, for example, front double wishbone suspension coming straight from the RSR oil coolers going into that car, you know, like the type of downforce that's involved in that car, a lot of stuff inspired from IMSA racing and all that kind of stuff. And like, for enthusiasts, that really matters. Like, for guys like us, that really matters, to be able to say, like, okay, well, I have something street vind that has a lot of lineage to cars that aren't street vind, and that's what really makes that car special, as opposed to the guys that, like you said, are out here boulevard flexing.
Yep.
And unfortunately,
I just showed my age with the pimping, didn't I? Showed my age a little bit.
Yeah,
there?
Exactly.
Sorry about that.
No, but like, and I totally agree with both of you on that. I think it's one of those situations where it's a slippery slope, and they need to be very careful with this, because if they go down that line, not that any of us are Spyder owners here, but if I'm sure there's some out there that are they're like, they want nothing but, there's got, we've all met guys kind of like, oh, I have nothing but cabs and Spyders, and like I have a Speedster, and like I have a Speedster from every year, and those, as we know, those are very valuable cars. And there's people that like get off on owning those kind of cars, and like, what does that say to them when they do this to a Spyder that's supposed to be a coveted NA motor, and now they're turbocharging a Spyder? Are they saying to them to say like, well, hey, we know you guys buy the big dog stuff, but we're going to make like a kiddie version of what you got going on? So I agree. I think it's a very slippery slope, and I think they need to be careful with it. Let's move on from that. Speaking of 992, you have an allocation for it. I know this is not a shocker, but it's ending up in a lot of journalists' hands, the new GT3 992. Porsche is claiming this thing at 3.2, basically 0 to 60. As we know, that's kind of an archaic, like, measuring stick. However, it's still relevant, I guess, in a lot of places. So with that car, a lot of these journalists are scoring 2.8s. So, round table discussion. We know this, it's not a secret. Porsche always underrates like what's happening with their cars as far as a production standpoint. So they basically, under deliver, on or over, under promise and over deliver on something, right? And that's a great state of mind to be in, and it's a great place to be at. Does this surprise you at all that this is the situation with this car? Because people are saying like, wow, this car's a lot more powerful than they're claiming it to be, where they're like, well, only has like 10 more horsepower than the other one. You're like, okay, so to put this in perspective before we go too far around the round table, everybody knows from a stat standpoint how fast an 812 Superfast is, right? Like lightning. That's a 2.8 car. Everybody here's the coveted McLaren Senna, like whether what your feelings are on design quality or whatever, but it's a powerful car, right? It's made for track. It's made to do all these special things. That car also does 2.8. Those are hypercars. A 992 is not a GT3 is not a hypercar. It's not considered a hypercar. However, it produces. It's fighting with the big boys. Like, so does that surprise you at all, Greg? Like having an allocation? Does this? Oh my God! Like this is pretty rad.
Well, first and foremost, it's pretty badass to get the phone call to say, "What do you want, wing or no wing?" Right? So that's the coolest call.
Yeah, that's
you can
the
get,
start, right?
Like,
yeah.
Me? Okay, great. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I think a couple things. First and foremost, it's a German manufacturer. You understand the engineering behind it, and they play the game. I mean, they know what they need to do. To your point of, over. Delivering versus the under promise part. I mean, I think that's pretty relevant.
Yeah.
I think why not want to come out of the gates and go, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's where it goes from. I think the car is going to be, I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to, clearly we know it's going to be quicker than the 3RS version.
Of course.
It's going to be something to be had.
Yeah, it's running 918 times basically on the Nürburgring, and it's a GT3.
Stupid,
and that was
right?
their hypercar.
No big deal.
So, like you race a 991 Cup car. So your thoughts on like Cup car technology going into street-based cars? Like, not that it hasn't before. This isn't super revolutionary. Like, they try to derive a lot of it, but actually this is probably one of the biggest step forwards from a suspension standpoint, from an aero standpoint on a GT3 spec street car. What are your thoughts on that from a guy who spends time on the track racing one of these Cup cars, now that you're going to be able to have some of that technology bleed over into the street?
So I'm excited to see it on the street, honestly. So, and I drive the 991.2 Cup car, and that we have, I think, McPherson front suspension on ours. And the new model 992 GT3s have the dual control arms, I believe. From what I've heard with the new Cup cars that have the dual control arms, that it's a much better system. They're not having to run as aggressive camber setups.
Yep.
Because with the 991.2 Cup cars, we're running like 4 or 5 degrees of negative camber.
Absolutely.
It's just like way than I mean, it looks cool.
Yeah, and then and depending on and a lot of series, there's almost so much camber you can run, right? Anyway, so you're kind of limited on that part too. So like this changes that dynamic a lot, right?
I'm excited to get a chance to drive it.
Yeah.
Plus, I believe our allocation's in manual, or is it in?
No, it's manual for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it either way. I got to have a unicorn somewhere. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gearboxes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so not a shocker, super fast car. So this front half of the show, let's close it with Ken Block, as we know him, the Hoonigan. His contract just ran out with Ford as far as like having to do all Ford stuff. Like we know he had like the Hoonigan like Mustang and the Hoonicorn and all that stuff where he did all these Gymkhana videos. So that contract has run out, for better or for worse. So it's Ken's kind of do whatever he wants to do, which is nice. Which the more interesting thing is he's going to run the East African Safari in an air-cooled Porsche that Tuttle's building. If you guys aren't familiar, we've talked on previous episodes that Tuttle has worked with Singer on building their off-road car. So Tuttle's been in the East African Safari game since the 80s. They're world-renowned, multiple championships.
So it's a good base.
So thoughts on, like, we know Ken's a wild driver, but like from a good standpoint, not wild in a positive way. I don't mean like wild and reckless, but I mean he's very, very good car control. He's not afraid, essentially, to do what he needs to do. How do you think he's going to fare in one of the most treacherous rallies in the world at the East African Safari?
Well, he's done a lot of weird and crazy stuff, so I think he'd be able to handle a lot of things, but who knows what that's going to throw at him that he hasn't seen.
Yeah.
I think he's not going to drive as aggressive as you might think. I think he's going to probably hold back maybe this first time.
Well, it's an endurance race, so we all know you can, don't ditch the car in the first lap. So your thoughts on that?
That one's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, we've all seen the videos. I've watched him race. I mean, he definitely takes some unnecessary risks, I think, sometimes. Yeah. So, if he can dial that back and, given how he's matured, and he's not a young guy anymore, right? No. So, I think he'll be okay as long as if he drives at 9/10 and doesn't, I think he'll be in a good place. So
yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's survivability, right?
Yeah, of course.
So from a race car driver standpoint, what are your thoughts on that, Michael? I mean, clearly you're like a road racer. I know you and I had some conversations about like off-road racing with the Safari that you asked me about, like the feels on it. But what's some of your thought process on like what maybe he has to go through to like what you have to do on the road track? Because some of that stuff like obviously cross-pollinates, like it matters. Like, do an endurance rally over treacherous. I mean, he's running probably 2-3 hour stints, like this thing lasts like for days on end. Is that a challenging thing from a race car driver standpoint to be able to just keep on your wits that entire time? Like, how challenging is that, you would think?
Well, like you said, it's an endurance race, so it's all about just keeping your head straight for that amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it gets difficult, especially with like some of the rally car stuff. I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to do any of the off-road racing, but I try to play on the sim, and I do all the dirt rally games.
Yeah.
And even just doing the normal length courses is a lot, so I can't imagine what it would be like to run like a full-on East African rally stage.
Exactly. Because there's so many like elements that go into that, right? It's not just driver fatigue, like that's a part of it, but it's like car fatigue. And like thankfully for Ken, like he has Tuttle behind him, which is like the best in the business. They've been doing it forever. So he's going to get great car support. He's got a good support team behind him. I think it's going to be super interesting. Good for Ken, like you said, he's not a spring chicken. And for a young man, that's a tough race. And like, for an older guy, like in his 50s, to go out there and like have to like...
Must have been a bucket list thing. He was like, you know what? It's time.
I think so. Like he's a rally guy, like in that, and to be able to like perform at like one of those highest levels where that's the people that are in the rally world, everybody knows like maybe Dakar where they've made that like sexy and all that kind of stuff. But hands down, everybody it talks about who's like really into racing, like the East African Safari is the one.
I think what's going to be difficult for him is like, let's say Michael in the road racing thing. So like in Birmingham last week, you've got two places that's a nice long straight. You can open up your hands, relax for a second. You don't have to drive. You're going in a straight line. You can just take a break. I think if you're in rally, I mean, there's no time.
No.
There's no time for that.
Yeah.
It's always on edge.
Yeah. It's just fatigue, and like how much can you battle for that stuff, like really you need to hit the gym and like get your stamina up, whatever you need to do, like run, you gotta, swim, pool time, whatever you gotta do to get out there to get it done. Like we're excited to see him do it. But yeah, I think it's just kind of interesting, especially with, we'll close with this before we move into like actually their bio. Safari cars, no kidding, are like super hot right now. Do you think that influenced him at all? I mean, like we know he's a rally guy anyways. Like we've seen his videos that he's doing all that stuff. But do you think that had any type of influence on this a little bit? Because he's running an air-cooled.
That's the new hotness.
I mean, he's running an air-cooled in this thing, and it's rallied, it's safaried. Like, I think it has to be, like, he's paying attention, right? Like, it has to be one of those things.
And is it not a bucket list thing? I mean, every racer wants to, you want to be able to check off and say, I've done this, this, and this, and, I'm not just a one-trick pony.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't run a 1-hour stint. Like, I can run in a 10-day course, and I can still qualify and win and do all that kind of stuff, right?
It's a very Everest or some type of one of those type of things where it's like, yep, I did that.
Yeah, like the Peking to Paris, like you hear all these things, like this Panamericanas,
races like that.
Like you hear these like bucket list things, and I think it has the mystique of because it's been around for so long too, so it's like sexy on that point too, to be able to like check that on your box as a race car driver. I'm sure you can relate to that, Michael. Like starting out really early in your career, you did karting, you have this, but like clearly you're in that realm where you see things and you see bucket list races where you're like, I want to win that race. I want to be on podium on that race, right? So like you can relate to that, right?
Oh, for sure. For me personally, like all my favorite cars are from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I completely understand why he's want to go back and drive some of the classic cars, like the air-cooled Porsches. He's got the RS200 he had with Ford and some of the older cars he had. It just all my favorite cars are from 80s and 90s.
Because it gives you that like, even if you're not living in that area, but like it gives you a piece of that like time frame, right? Like where that was sexy, right? Like that's when racing where men were men, and they got out there and they went after it, right? Like where it's like, wow. And I think even like, and you can relate to this more than I can, but I mean like we talk to guys that race stuff like that, but you integrate with them, you race with them, and I think it's one of those like, I don't know, like mystique things even within the own like race community. Like if you guys are all race car drivers, it's almost like a respect thing, right? You're like, oh wow, like I don't know you personally, but I know your bio. I know that you raced in East African Safari and you placed like second, in a car that had a broken axle, and it's just like, dude, you're a legend, like that kind of stuff.
East African Safaris automatically you're a badass.
Exactly.
Right? You just say the words.
Yeah, like done. Yeah. Like okay, awesome, badass. Yeah, right?
With like animals and shit.
Exactly.
On the track.
No, 100%. Yeah, like there's all these other things that you don't think about like that go into it. You're like, wild boar was attacking the car as we drove by. Like
I was trying to change a tire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're like, good luck. We had to wait it out till he was tired. You're like, whatever. But pretty rad on that. So let's just segue. Let's not take a break. Let's just keep it rolling. So I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourself. Like I'll start with Michael. Like you're racing now. Like obviously you have a very strong background. I'm sure there's a lot of people curious. Like how did you get into this? So you karted at a very young age, and like now you're racing Porsches. Took a little bit of hiatus before you got into Porsches, but like talk to us a little bit about like how early you started karting, where you are currently, what series you're running in currently, all that kind of stuff, and what are some of your goals and where do you want to be at?
Cool. So I started driving go-karts when I was about 7, and by the time I was 14, 15, I was international racing. So I was racing in Europe in go-karts, doing the Euro Challenge.
Okay.
One of the first, well, not one of the first, but one of the only Americans over during that time. I came back here, I moved up another class, and I started winning national events more frequently, and I actually ended up being the U.S. national champion in
2017.
Yeah. And then ended up going over to Portugal to represent the U.S. in the Road Tax Grand Finals. So it was an amazing experience. After that, I was already moved up to Indiana. I was up there for about a year trying out college.
Notice it says trying out college. Yeah. That's a racer right there.
Ended up coming home because
it didn't work out for me. I didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
Yeah. I was in motorsports engineering, and then I realized I kind of want to drive more than I want to be an engineer.
I don't want to build these things. I want to be behind the wheel of them.
That's right. So took some time off, changed up my degree, and I'm doing business entrepreneurship right now.
Nice.
Got into...
So you're going to own your own race team someday. Nice.
I don't have enough money to make money off of racing. Ended up wanting to do some father-son racing when I got back. We ended up buying a prototype car, a Norma MC20.
Yeah.
So a little K-Series Honda motor, nice sequential transmission, lots of aerodynamics. And we had a race team out of Florida, a Speed Syndicate, running sport for us.
Nice.
They also run sport for a different race team that ran TCR and IMSA.
Yeah.
And they were watching me. They were get my times. It was like, wow, this kid's actually fast. So
I think I saw you guys race together at Road Atlanta a few years ago when that happened, right?
No, actually, well,
or was that?
It was we tested up there.
Okay.
Yeah, we tested.
Maybe
up
that's
there.
what it was.
Yeah. Yep. We had the Norma up there.
Yeah. It was fun. They stuck me in the TCR for an IMSA round at Sebring. They were planning on setting me up for the rest of the season. I did really good at Sebring. Had electrical failure on the first lap. Was able to get from last to 8th, then last to 5th.
Yeah.
Back and forth because of the restarts and stuff. And we had rain in the middle of the race.
Yeah.
Ended up 5th.
At Sebring, shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I called everybody in because the lightning, so we're sitting around in the car. It was 103 degrees in the car, just boiling my eyes out. Got back out on track. We ended up 5th. I was the first stint driver. I think we could have ended up 4th, but team rules, you know how that is.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to be set up for the rest of the season. I was in the second car, and the guy who ran the team was like, hey, we can't afford that because of COVID.
Yeah.
That shut everything down. Then we were just doing some testing in between the season, everything else like that. And then, funny story, the owner of, was Mr. Stone the CEO of?
No, he's the owner of Kelly Moss. Mr. Stone, Jeff Stone.
Yeah.
So he actually knew my dad from like a long time ago. So back when I was karting at a younger age, we had an RV that we ended up selling it to him. And he's always kept in contact with my dad and kept an eye on my racing. He's been always trying to get me into a Porsche Cup car.
Yeah.
And just ended up everything aligning and got an amazing sponsor now. And we're running in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America. And so far I've won all 4 races and qualified pole on all 4 qualifyings.
Nice.
So,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's too easy.
Well,
Yeah.
it's early in the season.
No,
right?
I know. But congratulations to you. Like, so to ask you a couple, I'm sure there's some aspiring race car drivers maybe listening, or even fathers like getting their daughters and sons into racing. Because you had the background in karting and all those things, do you think that really makes you a lot more comfortable? Because as we know, like everybody, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's nice to hear somebody from who's like done it firsthand. Like, if you really want to have a chance, you got to start karting at a young age. Do you think that really gives you like a better edge? Like, because like I've seen you on track, you're very comfortable in the car. Does that help? Like having that background where you're just kind of like, all right, like not from an arrogant standpoint, but like as we know, like comfortability makes you fast. You need to be comfortable with the car, right? Like, so do you feel like that helps give you that like edge, like having that background?
Okay, so with karting, it allows you to learn like the base feeling of like momentum change and everything in the kart. So like the little G-force wheel. Yeah. That kind of ingrains into your brain.
Okay.
So you can feel that, and you can use that to help tune the car and to get a better setup. Driving karts is almost necessary if you're going into open wheel cars in the U.S. right now. For sports cars, it's a little different. You can start in like Miata Cup or karts or Like, there's a lot of ways to get into sports cars, luckily.
Okay.
But having a karting background helps a lot with that. So that gives you like the what I call like the base skill required to drive a car. So you don't have to learn that when you're first getting into cars. You already know what you're doing. It's made it to the point where I've been able to jump in and out of a few different cars I've gotten a chance to drive to, and I've been almost on pace right out of the gate. Almost always. So I've driven the 991.2 Cup car. I've driven a Audi RS3 TCR car and a few other cars on the side for fun. And I almost every single time out of the gate, I'm almost on pace right away. No problem.
So like as far as like development, so like this is where we're like going to help you like plug a little bit, like so where people are out there. What's the goal with? Obviously, you're racing right now in the series that you're in, but like in your mind, what would be your progression? Where do you want to see yourself? And like, I know it's pretty cliche to say like, oh, you're like, get the whole like dad talk. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? But like in all seriousness, from a race perspective, like where do you see yourself progressing or hope to progress? Like as far as like what series do you find yourself comfortable? Like, all right, I want to be in that series.
So currently I run in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America, which is the beginning of the ladder system for Porsche racing in the U.S. right now. I plan on winning that this season.
Good for you. Absolutely.
I don't like being cocky about it.
No. Like you don't need to have modesty. Like goals are important. Like so, it's good for you to say that.
Yeah, so do my best, learn as much as I can in this series. Get really used to using the radio and stuff because I've never had to do that before in karts or anything like that.
You can't tell me what to do. Michael, take it easy. Save gas. I just know matted. That's it.
So then, at least my plan so far is right now I'm sponsored by Racing for Children's, and they have a 992 Cup car that they're running right now with a different driver.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that charity a little bit before we segue too far on. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Tell our listeners about like why that's important, why it's so good, and what they do.
So it's an amazing charity. It's for children with terminal cancer, and they're trying to find a cure for cancer and all that.
let me back up for a second.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. So Michael's name, this is just like poetry at its best, right?
Yeah.
So my very best friend at 18 died of cancer.
Okay.
And
sorry to hear that.
Hey, you hate to hear it, but also, I mean, it lives with me every single day, and it's very positive. And Michael's named Michael because of my friend Michael.
Yeah.
And so when you think about where
That's
we've
awesome.
come full circle,
Yeah.
we were really lucky to connect with Kelly Moss and Jeff Stone and the team, and really worked really diligently to try to get this sponsorship lined up. And honestly, we really, I think I mentioned this earlier before we started this, that, I went from trying to figure out how I fund my son in his racing to how do I really actively be involved with this charity.
Yeah.
Because,
That's cool.
these are kids that, have a chance at life, right?
Yeah.
And the moniker of Racing for Children's is we're racing for a cure.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what more could you get behind, right?
Of course.
I mean pediatric kids with cancer, you want to give them a life like we enjoy and all that other things. So
stuff we take for granted, right?
Absolutely.
Like they didn't even get like a start, right?
Absolutely.
Like they're already battling out the gate. Like,
yeah, that's right. And it's just one of those things that, we raced in Alabama last week. All the kids came out, and, all the parents maybe it was more important than the kids in some respects to give them hope too, to say as a parent to another parent, we're here for you. And, it just could not have come at a better time. And I think it was life-changing for us last week, being involved with those kids and the families and the charity and the race. And for him to go out and, this is my dad moment for 1 second, but to win by 34 seconds, you know what I mean? Is
super rad.
Yeah, it's just cool. So,
and I'm going to piggyback on a story that you told me, because I know it's kind of a tough one for you guys to tell. So you guys can just listen and correct me in the spots that like I kind of leave out. But the general gist, Michael podium first, and at the same time, there was a young gal there, 18 years old, that was in remission from fighting cancer, but now has found out, unfortunately, it has come back. And Michael, like at that race, had a really special trophy. And like Dad, it's kind of funny, before like actually meeting this gal, it wasn't like anything to take away from that, but like he's like, man, that's a really cool trophy. I can't wait to like. And proud dad moment, like without even like having this conversation, it wasn't planned. Michael gave this trophy to this young gal because she impacted him so much, and he just wanted to do something nice for her, because it was, to him, it's like, it's just a trophy, but like, this is cool for you to have, for you to be here and at this race, and I want to give you something rad. So that just shows you like the grit this young man has, and like, kudos to you as a dad to like, raise him right without, like I said, it wasn't a premeditated thing. It's like, all right, if we win this race, this is what's going to happen. Right. It was just kind of like a spur of the moment. It's like, hey, I want you to have this trophy. So, as the listeners, and like, how awesome is that? Proud dad moment, like really right there, wow, how rad is that?
For sure. It's like I told you before, I saw the trophy, I'm like, God, I really want that trophy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a sexy trophy. I want that.
We're supporting IndyCar.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. You won, really. You destroyed the field, blah blah blah. And I came up to him and I said, hey, I was really serious. I go, hey, I really want that trophy. Make sure I want that one. And he looks at me and he goes, you can have this wheel, you can have any part off this car you want, but that trophy's going to Molly, and Molly's a young girl's name.
Yeah.
And he walked right over to her, gave it to her, and she's the sweetest young lady ever. She walked around the pits, held it up, like I told you, it's a big, granite bottom. And she's walking around the pits with it.
Toted that thing around all day, right? Yeah.
It just made our day. And I was, clearly I was happy for what he did, but that was that moment that you said, to your point, wow, maybe I did do right? I mean, because would I have done that at his age? Clearly not.
Probably not. Yeah,
no
absolutely.
No
but he had the foresight to do that. So kudos to you for Michael, like for doing that. Like, good on you. And I think it's one of those things, like, it just shows you, like, we're out here. If you can make somebody else's day better, like, and like, that's pretty rad that he did that. So like, good for you guys. And like, that just, I wanted to share that story, because I mean, it's not Appreciate one that you want to, it's hard to tell yourself. It's like people are like, oh yeah, you want to brag about that story, but like, that's why I wanted to tell it, because I mean, it is a really like special moment that happened like in a very special place where, not that many people, especially like the listeners, unless you were there, you didn't get to see it happen, right? But like, I think it needs to be talked about. Like, I think it needs to be, especially you as a young man, to have that foresight to say like, hey, like, you'll like this more than me.
That's right. You gotta pay it forward every chance you get.
Exactly. And it just shows you, like, again, like, what kind of person you are, and like, we're happy to have that. And like, if you're a listener and like you want to donate to All Children's, like, it's an awesome thing. Like, they've been working with Kelly Moss for a long time now.
Correct. Yeah.
And if you guys have ever seen on Instagram where they have like the hands on the car, that's the livery on the car. That's what this is. So like, I'm sure you guys have seen it and maybe not put 2 and 2 together, but that's what that charity is. And it's people like Michael and all those good people around them. Like, they get them out to the racetrack, they show them the race cars, you know, they're sitting in it, like they spend time with them. I mean, it's people helping people. It's like a really, really good thing. And
just so you know, Mike, I mean, all those handprints, those are the kids' handprints.
Exactly.
Those are patients, those are children, and they, you know, when we brought them into the pits for that event, I mean, they signed the car, all these nice, you know, it was just...
What a phenomenal thing, because like, to be on top of that too, like, even as fans like us, and I'm sure many wrestlers that are out there, you know, there's a mystique that goes with like race car driving, whether you want to believe it or not. And there's a barrier, whether it does exist or not, but like, a lot of people have that feel where like, those guys are unattainable to reach. Like, they cannot talk to those people, not because they're like standoffish, but just because they're on that level. They're racing cars, they're doing dangerous things. And the fact to break down that barrier, to bring those kids in and bring that in, I mean, that must be really special for them too, to be able to spend time with the race car drivers and like get to see the race cars. Like, I know as an adult, like, I'm happy when I get to spend time with a race car. Right. And I'm sure that you as a race car driver, even like, it's still like, I think a funny story your dad even told me, like, because you're so ingrained in it, because you're cleaning your own, you know, like karting car. You're out there first couple races, you're cleaning your own cup car, and the guys and your team, your pit crew's like impressed of that. What is this kid doing? Like,
exactly.
Why are you cleaning your own car? And I think it just...
Clean car drives faster.
Yeah, I think it just...
Absolutely, right.
And I think it just goes back to, like, what people don't realize. Usually the crew team, like, cleans the car. Like, but Michael's cleaning his own car, so it just shows you what kind of, like, you know, person he is. And I think it's really, really rad that you guys are involved with All Children's. And, you know, let's have one of these, like, big-time listeners out there get behind you guys and help sponsor that and, like, donate some money to them and keep you in a car, right?
Yeah, if you guys can, it's the Children's Hospital of Alabama. So it's racingforchildrens.org. And if you go and click on fundraise, you can go right to Michael's own page. So he's a fundraiser. So, you know, that's his job. And make it really clear to everybody. I mean, there's zero money that goes to my son.
Yeah.
It's 100% goes to those children and the research. It's unlike
Say
any
that
other
again,
charity.
Greg, because you and I talked about that earlier. There's so many charities out here that are out here fronting, and they're like, oh, well, only 10% of the actual proceeds actually go to the charity. He just said 100%. So this isn't like, and I know that a lot of people may be leery about stuff and donating to these kind of places because of that reason, but this is a no BS situation. Like, if you donate $100 is going to them.
100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we met all of the folks last week that run the program, they're all volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean, at first I meant to come on, I'm like, why don't you return my text messages in 2 minutes, because I'm thinking business person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you have a job, and you're but I mean, it's 100% goes to those children. It goes 100% to the research to try to find a cure.
Yep.
I mean, it's unlike any charity that, at least I'm in the medical field, so any charity unlike that I know of.
Yeah.
And you know, if you can make a difference in a child and their family, and I would encourage you guys, if you want to see the story, go to their Facebook page, Racing for Children's.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see all the pictures and you'll see the comments by the parents. I mean, if that doesn't do it for you, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Honestly. So.
Because to be honest with you, this is obviously very specifically driven. Everybody who's listened to us is probably an enthusiast. Obviously, like, a strong percentage of you have a child at some point. Like, just put yourself in these people's positions. So it's like combining two things that you love, right? It's racing Porsches and helping kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a total win, right? But yeah, just wanted to spend, like, because it deserves the time.
Yeah,
it deserves the time. And, you know, kudos to everybody who volunteers at All Children's. Kudos to Kelly Moss that helps support that program too. They stand up as much as they can to help that. And everybody involved all the way across that, like, big round of applause for them, because it really is. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, really. Right. I mean, you're out there racing cars, you're helping kids. Like, it's, you know, it's an emotional thing,
right.
But it's also like a very positive thing, right? So it's like it's a good thing.
I just, in parting on this topic, I mean, the coolest part for me as a parent was when I was, you know, watching Michael go through the kink, and we had a VIP tent, right, for the Racing for Children's program, and all the parents and kids were there, and every time I went by, he doesn't know this, but all the kids were running down to the field at the fence line, waving their flags, and every lap cheering him on. The whole, you know, it's 200 people there.
They're like, that's our car.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, you know, it's not. I mean, we call it powered by the hands, right? Yeah. And so, why is Michael so fast? Well, you know what? It's not about him anymore.
Yeah.
He's representing. We are representing those kids, and if we win. We win for them. They win that day. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot. It's very clearly I'm passionate about it. It's very personal to me and for those kids, frankly. So
no, but it also like it's pretty rad too because like you said, they're out there, they're watching the car. It also gives them. They're not just there like like we've all seen it where they just come out and they get to do the tour and all that stuff. They're like, that's our car. Those are our hands on that car. Like that's really cool, and like it gives them something when they're at the track to cheer for because they're like that's us out there. Like he's representing us, and I'm sure that gives you extra turbo boost. Like I know it's an NA car, but I'm just metaphorically speaking, where you're out there, you're like, I'm gonna win for these guys.
For me, I couldn't be more proud of representing such an amazing cause. And even on the first race on Saturday at Barber, I got the white flag, and I just decided, I'm just going to show off for everybody. I'm passing going into the first corner of Barber, even though I got like a 30-some second lead. And I'm just doing it for fun. I'm showing off for everybody who's there. Just come watch.
I'm sure they loved it.
This is what you guys allowed me to do.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like, absolutely awesome. Before we close, I just kind of want to touch a little bit on, talk to you, Greg, a little bit about, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this category of, how do I get my kids started with this? Like, how do I get my kids started in karting? Like, how did you come to the decision that, obviously you're a car enthusiast. You've owned different makes and models. Clearly, I think Porsche is one of the ones that holds strong for you. And how did you decide at that point, not necessarily like you're making Michael's decisions, but like, how did you get to the point where like, hey, we're going to do this for him. Like, we're going to get behind him because clearly he has an interest in that. Like, how does one go about doing that? Because I think there's a lot of curiosity because there's a lot of people out there that don't really know how to get that started. Like, how do I jumpstart this?
Yeah, obviously a very interesting question, maybe one that's fairly lengthy, but I'll try to get to the point. I think for me, I was brought up in motorsports. That's all we ever did. Like, I didn't go play baseball or football, or I didn't do any of those things. Memorial Day was it for us, Monaco and then Indy. That's what we did. Yeah. And, so my dad instilled that in me very, very early. I raced, dirt bikes, anything that I could drive, ride, whatever it was. But, I raced prototype cars, and I was in a pretty bad accident, and he was in a playpen, no joke, at Sebring, and I rode off a car. No. My wife was actually a spotter. Yeah. And I came in, had the whole walk of shame. They dump truck in with your parts, and there's my car in a pile, and she's like, exactly. And she's like, that will never happen again. And I stopped, but
you have a son.
That's right, exactly, and a daughter, by the way. But we just decided to get him a go-kart, and that's where it really started. And I think you look at go-karts, it's really inexpensive. I mean, it is very inexpensive to get into, at least initially. If you find yourself there's a knack, it gets pretty expensive. There's no joke there.
Yeah, once you start getting competitive,
exactly.
Right?
But I will tell you what, I kind of look at racing and maybe karting like a lot of people maybe look at golf. Like, a bad day.
I don't want to interrupt you, but look at this.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
The 2000 Formula One baby car out here going by, out on the road. You guys could probably hear it.
Oh, it's the two-seater.
The two-seater,
yeah. Car, yeah.
That's pretty cool. But going back to your story, sorry.
No, you're good. So, I look at like golf, like a lot of people look at golf. Like a bad day at golf is better than a good day at work. I just want to be around my family, my kids, be at the racetrack. He's in confined environment. There's usually good people there. Yeah. And it's quality time, and for me, it's an individual sport. So you build real character. I mean, there are some days where Michael was the quickest kid on track, and a part broke. Yeah. I'm like, and you hold him in your arms. You're like, it's going to be okay tomorrow. But it builds character, and I think that it's real life for me. It will pay dividends clearly as he gets older and moves into other things, whether it's professional or whether it's racing or maybe both, right? Yeah.
What's a good age, if you think, from a parent, because you've lived it, like for these people that are curious? They're like, I think that's also another question. A lot of people are out there, like, they hear a lot of advice. Obviously, there's a heavy industry around it, and there's a lot of money-making gimmicks around it. But in your going through it, when Michael started at his age, would you think he was started later? Do you think he was right on? Do you think he should have started earlier? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, probably earlier, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so how old were you?
Yeah, he was 7, but truth be told, he was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, he was horrible in the beginning. Like, he would almost get lapped, and my wife and I'm like, oh, this may not work out.
Yeah, like it was Chuck E. Cheese bumper cars to him, basically. Let's just hang out. I mean, it's a tough. I mean, when you're young, you're a kid. Yeah. You're not really.
I mean, he literally pulled over one time in the track and flipped his visor up and was rubbing his eyes. He got sand in his eyes. I'm like, dude, you're in the middle of a race. So there's a type of thing.
The growing pains that happen with that, right?
Of course, but the only thing.
Dad, I'm hot. You're like, dude, you're gonna be hot for the rest of your life if this is what you want to do.
Exactly. But I mean, I think there was a moment of, a real true rude awakening when we were racing, nationally at a very high level. Lance Stroll, who races Formula One.
Yeah.
Well, we used to race with him.
Yeah.
And, he would pull up in a full semi.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, full semi. And the sergeant, I can name Di Francesco, who's racing right down the road here. I mean, they would pull up in semis and have 30 engines in the back with a dyno for a 12 or 11-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And how do you how do you keep up with the Joneses? You don't.
Yeah.
At that level, you don't, and you hope that natural talent.
Exactly. Don't chase that. Just try to build the talent. Just try to build the talent.
Like we talked about, there's always somebody with a faster car with more money. It's never going to work. But I mean, fundamentals are everything, and maybe
no matter what sport you're in, there's always going to be a Yankees around, right? Yep. Like no matter what, there's guys that are billionaires that are going to throw money at it. Yep. Don't try to compete with that, right?
Right.
So you're saying earlier, so what? Maybe 5?
Obviously we're in St. Pete, and there's a lot of love here for Dan Weldon and his 2 boys, and they started really. They were, I want to say 4 or 5, and they're doing really, really well right now. I honestly think that you think of anybody who's made it really in Formula One or any real form of motorsport, they started really early.
Yeah.
And it's you talk about muscle memory. It takes a long time to develop the mental toughness, the ability to download and understand the data. And, I mean, you can teach
and apply it too, right?
Of course.
That's the big thing, is applying it.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know there's a lot of listeners that have young children, probably 2-3 years old, and they're wondering when. They've even come to us, and I was like, oh, I don't have any children, so I can't share that with you. But thank you for sharing that insight of saying, like, 5. Yeah. If you're serious about it, and you want if you don't want to just go out there and play around, you want to give them a legitimate shot, like, okay.
And a lot of it at that age is spatial awareness.
Yeah.
Honestly, you got a bunch of kids around you. The kid who doesn't, like you said, bumper car. The kid who goes, okay, I'm gonna look forward, and I have my peripheral vision, but I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
That will matter.
Yeah. Do you remember that stuff when you were that young, Michael? Do you still remember, like, when you were out there, like, having fun and kind of just, like, not really taking it serious? You're just kind of like, I'm just cruising around, like.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. As you guys probably don't know, Michael's nickname is the Sloth. So, like, I'm sure he's carried that, and what that is like, he's just super laid back. Like, his blood pressure does not get up. It's not from a fact of being lazy. Like, he just does not get bothered. And I'm sure, obviously, that's not a recent development. You've been that way from birth. So I'm sure it's probably, like, maybe a little frustrating as a father, too, even when he was, like, 7, where you're just like, dude, are you, like, smoking weed at 7 years old and I don't know about this? Like, you're just chilling? Like, I'm high strung. I'm ready to go. Like, what are you doing out here? Like,
I'll tell you a funny, real quick story. So we were in Orlando one time, and he had just moved up into DD2. So it's like the higher category of karting in Rotax. And, he was, I think, 15 or 16. So, everybody else was much older. And he actually out-qualified Rubens Barrichello from Formula One. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh, yeah,
Ferrari
I
driver,
do.
Right?
Yeah.
So I go up to the grid to see Michael, and he's got his legs over the steering wheel, and he's asleep on the grid. I'm like, dude, that's Rubens Barrichello, right?
Yeah.
There. Like, what are you doing? Like, get pumped, because a lot of racers, they do the jumping jacks, they jump up and down.
Yeah.
Not this kid. I mean,
he's like, Dad, I want Chick-fil-A after this is over, and you're like, what? You're about to race? You're thinking about what you're gonna do after this already? You're like, I just want to, like, chill.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, Aaron
Fun
doesn't
times.
have a pulse. Like, I gotta electrocute him to get his ass in gear.
Yeah.
Like, so.
But it's kind of it's just become funny now, because people call him the Sloth, but then on the track he's clearly not the Sloth. So it's I
mean, it's not a joke. Like, smooth and slow is fast.
Yep.
Like, so it's if you're not out there panicking, you're not over driving the things. Like, I mean, you could speak to that better than anybody, right, Michael? Like, can you relate to that? Is that like a slow is fast type of deal? Like, don't panic. Like, you'll be fine. Like, let's get it done. Like.
So slow is fast works to a degree, but what I think is more important is that if you make a mistake while you're on track, especially if you're in a race, it's important to not focus on oh, I just made a mistake in that corner, because by the time you're thinking, oh, I made a mistake in the corner that just happened, you're already making a mistake on the corner you're currently in.
Good point. You're not set up for
good
the
point.
next one.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Like, have amnesia, right? Forget right away.
No.
Oops.
If you make a mistake, it's whatever, it don't matter.
Yeah, they say like that some of the best race car drivers have amnesia, where they're just like, I'm not worried about it. Like, I'll make it up.
Right.
Like,
you can't.
Yeah, you can't live in the past on the track. You got to live in the moment, right?
Right.
Awesome. Well, I don't have anything else for them. Do you have anything?
Nope, all my questions were answered.
Good. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming out. Like, thank you, for sharing so much. We look forward to following you as your career progresses. And keep an eye out for Michael McCarthy. He may be seeing his name on Saturdays on the podium before you know it, and major competitions, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Really appreciate you guys, Aaron and Mike, for taking the time with us as well. I mean,
course.
it's, we've been followers for a while. I've known you a couple of years now, and it's in the Porsche community. So thanks for everything you guys do as well. It's,
thank you so
great.
much.
Yeah, it's
it's
awesome.
an honor to have you guys on. You're like from an enthusiast, like all the way to having like a son who's competing at a high level, and just everything you do too. Like, thank you guys, and like, thank you to All Children's, all of that stuff. And
I'm gonna keep correcting him. It's Racing for Children.
Racing for Children.
I'm sorry.
I
gotta do it.
No.
Yeah.
I'm saying it wrong. Like, I'm glad you're actually correcting
I think you're looking at the hospital across the way over
I
there.
am.
Yeah,
I think it's more of the St. Pete in me because I drive by that all the time. So I'm saying All Children. It's like racing.
Racing for Children's '*S.
Yeah. Forgive me, organization. Like, I don't mean it derogatory. Like, please give me a pass on it. But you've got Greg here fixing me. So, but thank you guys so much for coming to this awesome event. We know you're local, but we also know that you're super busy. So thanks for taking the time, and we're honored to follow you guys. And hopefully, maybe we'll catch up with you in a little bit and see where you're progressing.
Check back in.
Yeah. Cool. That'd be great. Thanks, gentlemen. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCar Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCar Talk or online at PCarTalk.com.